Hey everybody, Captain B-Nard here with your BHDL3 Week 5 recap and Week 6 preview. So, we're going to go ahead and get right into this by taking a closer look at our opponent for this week. And that, of course, was the whimsical Whimsicots coached by Sneezy Whims. So, as I had mentioned, this was a player who I've never battled before, as well a player who was new to the BHDL and Draft League in general. And so on the screen right here, you can see a snapshot of his full roster top to bottom. And so taking a look at this team, the Pokemon that I was expecting him to bring to this game 100% were the Palafin, the Tentacruel, the Iron Treads, and the Flygon. So I thought he was definitely going to bring all four of those Pokemon, no questions asked. Now, when it comes to the last two that I thought he was going to bring, that's where it gets a little bit dicey. So I thought there was actually a pretty decent chance that he would bring some combination of the Rotom Heat, the Ambipom, the Shaman, the Espeon, and the Darkspun. So I thought there was actually a reasonable chance that all of those Pokemon would come to this game, or at least some of those Pokemon, that is. And then lastly, the Pokemon I thought there was no chance of coming to this game was the Overquill. I just didn't think it had a very good matchup against my team. And so, yeah, I was not expecting that to come at all. But having said that, we're going to go ahead and keep moving by throwing it over to the team preview screen and seeing what he actually brought to the match. So here we can see the six Pokemon that he brought to the game on the right-hand side of the screen, the six Pokemon that I brought on the left. And so as you can see, he did bring the Flygon, the Iron Treads, the Darkspun, the Tentacruel, the Palafin, and the Overquill. So I said this at the time, I was pretty surprised that he brought the Overquill. But indeed, he did bring it. Additionally, I was a little bit surprised that we didn't see the Shaman. I was a little bit surprised we didn't see Terra Captain Espeon as well. But other than that, everything I had reasonably expected to come to this match. Now, as far as the Pokemon that I brought to the game, on the side you can see we have the Scizor, Rotom Wash, Goodra, Mudsdale, Sneasler, and Arboliva. So, um, again, these were just the six Pokemon that I thought had the best matchup into his team. But the one thing I do want to call out here is the Arboliva, because this was the first week that I brought it to a game this season, and it actually does mark the last Pokemon that I have drafted this season that hadn't come to a game. So at this point, every single Pokemon on my draft roster has come to at least one game. So that was kind of something I was gunning for, and something that I'm happy to have accomplished here. So, but yeah, I thought that this squad matched up pretty well against what I thought he was going to bring. So having said that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what actually happened in the game. So, for those of you who didn't watch the game, which I assume is no one, as per the usual, but here we go anyway. We did end up winning this game 5-0. It was a very interesting game, very hotly contested game. And so we did get a huge victory, though, 5-0. And since we won the game, I'm going to go ahead and name the game MVP, which, of course, if you've seen the game, you will know has to be Sneasler. And this is a pretty cut and dry reason why. Sneasler actually ran wild in this game toward the end. There was a lot of jockeying for position prior to that, a lot of setting up, a lot of placement, chip damage, that kind of thing. But at the end of the game, we were able to position it just right where we were to come in with Sneasler, and we actually ended up getting a full Sneasler sweep here as Sneasler eliminated all six of the opponent's Pokemon. So that was absolutely incredible, absolutely wild. We've never had anything like that before here. For the Philadelphia Pidgeys in Draft League. And actually, I don't believe I've ever had a game like that uploaded to my channel in any capacity. So this is kind of a first here for me to have a game where one Pokemon gets all six kills. But Sneasler was, in fact, the man for the job and did, in fact, pull that off. So, of course, obviously has to be the game MVP there. No surprises, of course. So, But yeah, we're just going to go ahead and keep on rolling here as we take a look at some key takeaways from this match. And so, as you can see here, we have our standard key takeaways. First one is going to be I thought that this was a good match on paper for me. And so, reason being is that it really seemed like Sneasler had a good matchup into my opponent's team, especially if I used the Unburdened set and was able to pop it off, which obviously is what ended up happening in this game. So, yeah, obviously, due to that, I felt like we had a really good matchup on paper. No surprises there. So, second thing I will note here is that I felt like I prepped well and also played well this week, which is obviously good um, because I felt like with the prep, specifically getting the Sneasler to pop off with the Grassy Seed Unburden, obviously all that good stuff, which was the reason the Arbolova was there. So again, give the assist to Arbolova for making that Sneasler sweep possible. But additionally, as far as the prep was concerned, I did bring screens on the Arbolova to kind of go ahead and try to ensure that the Sneasler could set up on my opponent for additional insurance. I also ran max HP on the Sneasler to make sure it could survive. Specifically, a Jet Punch from Palafin, even if it was max attack choice banned, which I believe it may have ended up being that. Um, but yeah, so that stuff specifically was kind of the big crux of the prep that I was happy with. But I also felt like I played the game pretty well. I mean, there were a couple of little things here and there where I mispredicted. My opponent got a free switch, like in the with the Flygon on the Mudsdale. But for the most part, I felt like I played the game pretty well. Like I said, the majority of this game was actually just trying to put myself in a position where I could chip the team down and get Sneasler in to just kind of run wild, which is, of course, what ended up happening. But prior to that, there was, like I said, there was a lot of positioning and chipping the opponent's team, which I felt like I played that pretty well. And then getting the Sneasler in at the exact right time was delicate, obviously, but we ended up making that work. So I was overall really happy with all that. Don't really have anything negative to say about any of that. And so, additionally, I will say there were also some positive hacks in this game to in my favor, and nothing that like outright won us the game, but some actually relatively significant stuff. So. I believe the first thing that happened was we ended up getting a crit U-turn when we U-turned with Scissor on the Overquill, I believe it was. We ended up getting a crit U-turn, which inflicted massive damage and massively chipped the Overquill down to the point that it would be easy to pick off with Sneasler later. The reason that that ended up being very important is because obviously Overquill has Intimidate, so when it came in, it cut Sneasler back to only +1 attack. So had the Overquill not been chipped, it might have actually been able to take an attack from the Sneasler potentially. But because it was so chipped, even with only +1, there was no way it was going to take an attack from the Sneasler. So that was actually a pretty big moment in the game that at the time it was important, obviously, but later on in the game, once Sneasler got in and got set up, it did end up being a very important hack in the long run in the game. Um, Additionally, a few turns after that, we had a situation where the Mudsdale was in versus my opponent's Flygon, and so in that situation, my opponent actually goes for a Draco Meteor and ends up missing. Now, I'm actually relatively confident that that might have KO'd the Mudsdale because despite being max bulk, we were actually at -1 special defense in that situation. So I know Flygon doesn't have the best special attack, I should say, but that would have, if it wouldn't have taken the Mudsdale out, it would have massively chipped the Mudsdale. So that was a pretty big moment too for a hack. Um, and then the last thing was we actually did get a second critical hit at the end of the game on the last turn where we had our +1 Sneasler in versus my opponent's Tentacruel, which was pretty near full health, honestly. And we do get the KO with the acrobatics. Now, he was max HP investment, so I think it actually might potentially have survived. The Tentacruel might potentially have survived that attack if not for the crit there. However, all that really meant at the end of the day was differential because at that point, the my opponent, as I said, only had the Tentacruel left. So even if they would have survived the attack, which I'm not 100% sure, I didn't do the calc post game, which maybe I should have, um, but I think there was a chance they would have lived if not for the crit. But even if they would have lived, like I said, we still had four other Pokemon remaining versus a Tentacruel on like 1 HP. So I feel like we most certainly would have had that regardless of that. It would have just been a differential thing. So I don't put too much stock in that last one. But yeah, definitely some impactful hacks on our side. Like I said, nothing that I think outright won us the game, but definitely some impactful positive hacks on our side, which is nice. And finally, the last thing I would say is once again with another victory, we end up building momentum toward the rest of the season, which is obviously very very important for us. Um, as I had mentioned, the Pidgeys advanced to a 5-0 record here in the BHDL3 after this victory, which is something that has never happened to me before. I've never been in this position in Draft League before, so I'm very excited about that, very happy about that, very thankful for that to be in this position, which we'll kind of delve a little more into in just a second here. As now that we've pretty much covered everything about this game this week, I want to go ahead and add a little something to this because, as I had mentioned, we are a little over halfway in the season at this point. 5 weeks down, 4 weeks to go in the regular season here in the BHDL3. And so I want to go ahead and take a look at current standings in the league right now. And so here we can see where everyone stands in the league post week 5. All the games are played, which makes this really easy. And so um, as you can see, we have all of the teams, all of the coaches, and all of their records with their differentials as well, which is going to be important. So I kind of want to give you guys my thoughts on where all of the teams stand here now that we've gotten over the halfway point here in this season of the league. So um, basically, when I look at this chart, I see it break down into four different categories of players. So the first category is going to be the top four individuals, the top four teams here. So that is going to be for the first time ever. Yes, I'm really happy about that, although um, not celebrating just yet because there's still a lot more work to do, of course. Yours truly, the Philadelphia Pidgeys, up there at the top, although. Of course, not far behind us, we have the reigning BHDL champion Raymond, same record as me, just not quite as high of a differential. And then, of course, we have two very tried and true BHDL competitors in Scorpion and Beardo clocking in at 4-1 records as well. So, that would be the four individuals who I would classify as the top of the list right now, all with very strong records, all with good differentials as well. And so for these individuals going forward for the rest of the season, essentially they just need one, maybe two more victories to solidify their playoff status here. Um, Obviously, it is not guaranteed at this point, but something pretty catastrophic would have to happen, knock on wood for myself, for any of those coaches to miss playoffs at this point. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the top position that you want to be in right there. Um, Kind of the way the math breaks down as I see it here is if you get to a 6-win record here, you're guaranteed to make playoffs. There's no two ways about it. You will be in the playoffs if you have 6 wins. Now, if you have 5 wins at the end of the season, there's a very solid shot that you'll be in playoffs. I would say if you have 5 wins with a good differential, you're definitely going to be in playoffs. And if you have 5 wins with a poor differential, you may even still be there. Just kind of depends on how the numbers shake out. So it is, 5 weeks in out of a 9-week season, a little premature to say for sure that anyone's locked in, but obviously the standings are starting to take shape. So that's the top of the list right there. Then we get to the uh, top middle of the list, which are going to be the next four teams, which are, of course, going to be Emerald Miner, To Best Not Really, Anastasia, and Lazy Boy, all clocking in with a 3-2 record at this point. Most of them, aside from Lazy Boy, with a pretty massive positive differential there. Now, for these four coaches going forward for the rest of the league, what they will have to do is secure at least maybe 2 more victories out of the 4 remaining games to try and make that playoff appearance. Um, Especially in Lazy Boy's case, because his differential is not nearly as high as the rest of them. Actually, the only, I believe, only coach with a positive record but a negative differential. So he's definitely got to be careful about that moving forward in the season. But for these coaches, it's just kind of continuing to do what you have been doing. And as long as they continue to maintain their consistency, they will make it to the playoffs here. Obviously, if they have a couple of bad weeks, they could fall from grace here. But these teams are also definitely in position to make a playoff push for sure. So, um, but the next category of teams I would say are going to be the middle bottom. So we have the top middle, and now we have the middle bottom, which would be the next 4 coaches there, which are going to be RK9er, Pokemaster88, Brandon P, and Rolder. So, um, those coaches are all clocking in at a 2-3 record currently, and so um, they have not the best of differentials, although RK9 at the top of that list, just barely with a negative differential, so pretty close to making it up to that top 8 position that you need to be to make playoffs. For these coaches, what they really need to do is obviously they need to win. Probably at least 3 of their final 4 games here to make that playoff push. But additionally, for them, they're really going to have to win by a big margin. So not winning is not going to cut it. Just winning is not going to cut it, I should say. They're going to have to win by a pretty decent margin in order to get themselves in position to knock someone else out of playoff contention here. So it is very doable for those coaches to make it to playoffs at this point, but they are a little bit behind the 8 ball, and they are definitely going to have to score some big victories to go ahead and um, make it into playoffs at this point. Now, the final group of coaches here we have are going to be the bottom records here right now in the league, and those, of course, are going to be Stefan, Lionel, Caddy, and Sneezy Wims. The former 2 clocking in at a 1-4 record, the latter 2 clocking in at 0-5 records. So, for these coaches specifically, or for the Stefan and Lionel, it's basically do or die at this point. So while these coaches are not mathematically eliminated from making playoffs yet, it is going to be a very difficult road for them to try and climb back into it. They are going to have to win all 4 of their final games. More than likely, in order to have a shot at making it into playoffs. And again, not only are they going to have to win them, but they are going to have to win some pretty significant margins on at least a couple of those games to try and make up differential. Now, for the last 2 coaches on the list, the Caddy and Sneezy Wims, I'm not going to lie to you guys, it is looking pretty bleak at this point, and I don't say that with any form of glee or malice or anything, because trust me when I say this is my 8th league I've been in. I've been in every single position on the board from very first to very last, so I understand. Um, but yeah, for those coaches, it is a very big shot in the dark right now if they could try and make a playoff push. So I will say technically they are not mathematically eliminated yet. And the reason I say that is because um, depending on how the numbers shake out, these coaches actually could potentially make it to the playoffs, sneak in with a 4-5 record, because what happens here is if all of the wins consolidate around the coaches toward the top of the list, then the coaches there becomes a lot more of a competitive scene for the last couple of spots, because a lot of coaches are going to have those same records, either 5-4 or 4-5 records. So if you have a strong 4-5 record and the wins consolidate on a couple of coaches toward the top of the league, you could actually sneak in with a 4-5 record here. But like I said, it is a little early to kind of make that prediction. But for those coaches, they are definitely going to have to buckle down. And like I said, they need not just wins, but they need massive wins in those last 4 games in order to try and save that playoff push potentially. So but that's kind of just how I see it at this point for the league. Again, it's been a really fun league so far. We're a little over halfway there. Like I said, I'm not definitely not celebrating just yet, because there's definitely a lot of league left to play. So that is going to go ahead and feed us into our week 6 game here. And that is going to be against Rolder himself, and the Down Under Crocodiles. So, um, Rolder is an individual who we've played once before here. We played him in the BHDL1, actually. And so here is a snapshot of his team. As I said, the Down Under Crocodiles this season. So as you can see, he's got a lot of powerhouses on this team, good synergy as well, and definitely a solid and threatening team once again. So once again, it is not going to be an easy week for us, as none of these weeks will be, of course. But yeah, once again, I am also looking to just kind of continue to do the work to hopefully maintain where we've worked ourselves into the spot that we've gotten ourselves into here in the BHDL3. But as an added kind of twist to this game, I would say, given Rolder's position in the league right now, I would say that it's going to make him very dangerous because he is going to be really hungry for that win this week. So definitely going to be another solid battle on the horizon. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching again, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. So that's it, and we'll see you next time.